a beautiful thing. It grows to the quiver of a fife that sings. I can take it with the wave of my hand and place it upon my music stand. Such a beautiful thing. Such a beautiful thing.
Okay, hello everybody. Welcome. I'm going to talk about freedom today. I like talking about freedom. I talk about freedom a lot. 2 weeks ago, Reverend Vincent gave a talk about freedom. Woohoo! What is freedom? It was a great talk. It's now a YouTube video. You can watch it on our YouTube channel. Also, anybody watching any of our videos on YouTube, on BitChute, on Rumble, please subscribe to the channel that you are watching this video on. It will help us stay in contact with you. Okay, freedom is a big deal in A Course in Miracles. I don't think people really grasp, Course in Miracles students grasp how big of a deal freedom is. But I did a quick count, which I can do. And there are 650 references to freedom or free or freed or some derivation of the word freedom. I mean, that's huge. I mean, by comparison, forgive and forgiveness, which is always also, really big, only beats it slightly with 699 occurrences. So, it's right up there with forgiveness. So it's a big deal in A Course in Miracles. I mean, you could say A Course in Miracles is actually a course in freedom. And there's also a lot of other quotes in A Course in Miracles that are talking about freedom in one way or another that don't actually use the word free or freedom, like, as long as a single slave remains to walk the earth, your release is not complete. So, it's about freedom. I always love that quotation. It's a real motivator for us to do the work, our special function that we're here to do, because anybody else that is in bondage is a reflection of our own bondage. And so everybody's bondage is everybody else's bondage. So as long as a single slave remains to walk the earth, your release is not complete. So freedom has to be total for it to be realized. So there are 32 references to slave or slavery in A Course in Miracles. There's 15 references I found to the word bondage. One of my favorites of those is, you will choose between total freedom and total bondage. And there are no alternatives but these. So again, the totality of it all, that we have to be totally free and we have to be choosing total freedom. Otherwise, we're in bondage, and it's either one or the other. We're not a little bit free and we're not a little bit bound. We're either free or we're bound, and that is it. There are 73 references to the word bound. Interesting one. If I am bound, my Father is not free. I mean, that's a really interesting idea, that if we perceive ourselves as not free, we're in some way imprisoning God. We're imprisoning the divine creator of all life. And how is that even possible? I mean, our bondage isn't even really possible, but it's certainly possible in our perception. And if we want a perception of a bound deity, a bound God, a bound Father, Mother, Creator, then we will perceive ourselves as bound. And if we want a totally free Creator, we will perceive ourselves as free. So there's so much of this teaching in A Course in Miracles that I'm currently perplexed why more Course in Miracles teachers don't talk about it. I don't hear that much conversation. Any? I don't know. I'm trying to really remember anybody. Any Course in Miracles teacher ever do a workshop on freedom? I mean, they do workshops on everything else. They're doing workshops on prayer. They do workshops on relationships. They do workshops on forgiveness. I don't remember any workshop on freedom. Yet freedom is huge in A Course in Miracles. I mean, freedom is really a sacred, I believe, A Course in Miracles teaching. And, considering that A Course in Miracles, manifested in the United States of America, and that the United States of America is a country that identifies strongly with freedom, whether it's realized or not, we do seem to identify with freedom. It seems fitting that A Course in Miracles that was so concerned and grounded in freedom would manifest here in the United States of America that really did believe in the sacredness of freedom. I've always connected with that idea about our country, that our country held freedom as a sacred thing. And I thought that was true, at least until the COVID-19 pandemic. And then I started to question a lot of that. But I really see that these are good questions and good conversations for us to be having. So I'm embracing the conversations about freedom in the United States of America. Freedom of the press. The illustration on your program is really an illustration about the freedom of press. Is the press really free? A lot of conversation about that. I mean, I could give a whole talk about that. I'm not. Freedom of speech. Do we really have freedom of speech? Well, my talk from August 24th, 2021, Bamboozled, was blocked from YouTube. And if I listened to that talk and I didn't say, I didn't advocate, the violent overthrow of the country, there's no hate speech in the talk, nothing in that talk. It's just a talk about spiritual principles. And yet that was blocked from YouTube. Interesting, that's my most popular talk on the BitChute platform, probably because it was blocked on YouTube. And, I told people it was blocked on YouTube, and if you want to listen to it, you got to go to BitChute. So, it's my most popular talk by a long shot on BitChute. So, sometimes people have challenged me, like, why are you posting on these alternative platforms? I says, to make sure that my word is there for people who want to hear it. Because I believe in freedom of speech. And, every minister wants his words to be there for those who want to hear them. And freedom of speech is getting challenged. And, there's a big lawsuit that was announced this week. It's two states. I think it's Louisiana and Missouri are suing all kinds of people in the Biden administration, and the judge progressed the lawsuit so they can get into discovery and demand evidence from all these people in the Biden administration, including Dr. Fauci, that they colluded with the social media platforms, YouTube and Google and Facebook, in order to suppress free speech. So we'll see how that goes. I think these things are just really, really interesting. Freedom is something that we need to talk about and have a discussion about. I mean, there was a wonderful thing that I felt was a reflection of freedom this week in LA County. Diane is here from Los Angeles area. And so LA County was reinstituting a mask mandate that was supposed to start. But so many municipalities in the county resisted it and said that they wouldn't enforce it, that LA County officially dropped the mask mandate this week. So I thought that was a good statement for freedom. I was glad these municipalities were standing up for freedom. The United States is supposed to be the land of the free and the home of the brave. That's the last line in our national anthem, the Star-Spangled Banner, the land of the free and the home of the brave. And over the past couple of years during the pandemic, it seemed like we were maybe the land of the enslaved. and the home of the scared shitless. Um, I don't really blame people for that. I think there was a real agenda on organizations and governments' part to scare people into compliance. And so this is all coming out, and this is all getting talked about. It's all part of our freedom. I think it's a great thing. And as I've said frequently, I believe Course in Miracles, it's really direct that we have to side with freedom. Now, it tells us not to fight for it, but it does tell us to side with it. This was in the reading that Reverend Vincent read. It said, "You have heard many arguments on behalf of the freedoms, which would indeed have been freedom if man had not chosen to fight for them. Yet the argument that underlies the defense of freedom is perfectly valid because it is true. It should not be fought for, but it should be sided with." It's a wonderful teaching about freedom. And it differs from freedom the way we've usually talked about it in our country, because we frequently talk about fighting for freedom. A Course in Miracles would not have us fight for anything. Fighting is how we make enemies. And the Course in Miracles is not about making enemies. It's about seeing everyone as our brother and sister in Christ. But it does want us to side with freedom, because freedom really is sacred in A Course in Miracles. It's a really big deal, and freedom is really a sacred thing for the holy children of God. So for us to be truly holy children of God, we have to be free, and we have to side with freedom everywhere, and certainly with ourselves. And what do we need to be free from? Well, this is a big discussion, but we need to be free from all the tribulations and woes that people usually think they have. Course in Miracles says, "In this world you need not have tribulation, because I have overcome the world." So we don't have to have those worries, those woes, those tribulations that we believe oppress us, because they all can be overcome. And Jesus offers an amazing example of one who overcame them. And because he did it, we can do it, and we can overcome everything. And certainly as I go through my life, and I look back, everything that I really worried about and tribulated about and woed about, it all cleared up in the fullness of time. And it cleared up faster if I stayed centered on my spiritual truth. One of my favorite passages in A Course in Miracles is another passage about freedom, and it relates to this, and it's talking about people who have woes and tribulations. And it says, "He seems a sorry figure, weary, worn, in threadbare clothing, and with feet that bleed a little from the rocky road he walks. Yet is he really tragic when you see that he is following the way he chose, and needs but realize who walks with him to open up his treasures to be free?" There's another great quote about free and freedom. So we can seem to be full of tribulations and woes, and we can seem to be sorry figures, and we can probably get a lot of agreement about our tribulations and our woes if we tell other people about them. But it's never really tragic, because we could always remember who is walking with us, and we could then be free, truly free of all these things. So who walks with us? This is a question that A Course in Miracles wants us to ask and answer. And different people may have different answers to that. And for me, I believe that the Christ walks with me. And when I say the Christ, I don't necessarily mean Jesus, though I do believe Jesus walks with me. But us Course in Miracles students know that Christ and Jesus are not synonymous terms in A Course in Miracles. It takes a while for a lot of new Course in Miracles students to get this, that when A Course in Miracles says Christ, it doesn't necessarily mean Jesus. It doesn't exclude Jesus, but it doesn't mean Jesus. So who walks with me? Well, Christ walks with me. Christ is the holy child of God as God created the holy child. I mean, it says that specifically. Christ is God's Son as he created him. He's the self we share, uniting us with one another and with God as well. So Christ walks with us. He is the self we share. Christ is what unites us all with each other. Christ is what lends all power and grace and overcoming to us. And we can be totally free and not be a sorry figure with tribulations when we realize who walks with us. I mentioned this quote before when I was talking about being bound. It's a workbook lesson number 278. If I am bound, my Father is not free. And that's an interesting idea. I wanted to mention it again because if we accept some definition of ourselves as being bound and limited, we think that God has limited power as well. And if we believe God has limited power, well, we're not going to turn to God to help us because our tribulation and our woe is probably beyond God's capability. So in order to truly rely on the divine creative principle to heal all of our tribulations, we have to really understand how free we are so that we can free up the divinity itself. And until we do that, of course, says, until I make this choice, I am the slave of time and human destiny. Slave of time and human destiny. We are free. We can be free from time. We can be free from human destiny. And let's face it, human destiny kind of sucks. I had an amazing demonstration of how much human destiny can suck this past week because, as many of you know, one of our minister, Reverend Alicia, she's been ill, and she made her transition this week on Tuesday, and I am her durable power of attorney and the executor of her estate, and so I was there doing it all, and even though it was the most healed and conscious transition I have ever witnessed, so I'm really grateful for that, it was still a messy body death thing. And both of those things were going on, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity to be there for Reverend Alicia and to help her with this, and it was very healing for many of us. And it was still a messy body dying because of illness. The great thing about what happened, and maybe some of you know this and maybe some of you don't, is that, Reverend Alicia, in an expression of her own freedom, chose to take end-of-life medications. She was in control of this process in ways that I have not seen other people do this before. And that's what was really so healing about it for many of us, We got to have a celebration of life memorial service with somebody who was still there. It was really amazing. I guess there were 14 of her friends there, so there were 6 there in person, there were 8 on Zoom, and so everybody spoke. Everybody got a chance to say wonderful things that you frequently say at celebrations of life and memorial services, right to Alicia herself, who was pretty active and perky and certainly happy to be having this gathering, and she got to respond to everybody. Wow, how amazing and healing was that. And there was a freedom in that. And then there was a freedom in Reverend Alicia being able to just be in control of all of this herself. It wasn't an out of control process. So it was really a blessing, even though it still had all the messy death stuff associated with it. I was grateful. Course in Miracles says, if I accept that I am a prisoner within a body in a world in which all things that seem to live appear to die, then is my Father prisoner with me. And this do I believe, that I maintain the laws the world obeys, must I obey. So if I think that I have to obey the laws of the world just because they seem to be in the world and just because other people seem to obey them, that I need to obey them, then I am a prisoner and I am not totally free, and neither is my creator totally free. So that's in that same lesson. If I am bound, my Father is not free. So again, how important freedom is, how sacred the idea of freedom is in A Course in Miracles. And it's absolute. And we are not free if we think we are bound by the laws of time and human destiny. We're above that. There's that lesson, I am under no laws but God's. I am under no laws but God's because I am above all the laws of the world. In that lesson, I'm under no laws but God's, it says, think of the freedom in the recognition that you are not bound by all the strange and twisted laws which you have set up to save you. We are not bound by any of those things. And that is where real freedom kicks in. And then this passage continues with some pretty controversial thoughts. It says, you really think a small round pellet or some fluid pushed into your veins through a sharpened needle will ward off death? And then it tells us that it's madness that thinks those things. So we're not bound by any of those laws. We're not bound by the laws of nutrition. We're not bound by the laws of medication, immunization. We're above all those things. Now, how that plays out in our decisions is a personal choice between each and every one of us and the Holy Spirit. But we need to really realize how vast and broad and all-encompassing this idea of freedom really is, and how important it is, and how sacred it is, and how we need to keep challenging ourselves about it, and we need to keep siding with freedom. We don't need to fight for it, but we do need to keep siding with it. So no, I do not really think any of those things about these laws that I am bound by. And those of you who know me know that I continually affirm that I'm ageless and timeless, and that I'm not getting older, I'm youthing, I'm not aging, and that I don't intend to die. Swear not to die, you holy Son of God. I don't know all the implications from that promise, but I am promising that I am not buying into death. I am siding with life because I am siding with freedom, and life is freedom, and freedom is life, and aging and sickness and death is what we're here to overcome. It's not what we're here to surrender into. And in whatever way and to whatever extent we can overcome it, it's all really worthwhile. I saw Reverend Alicia overcome some of it this past week just by taking charge of the process and making it the process that she wanted to participate in and that she felt good about participating in. That was part of a healing, and I acknowledge that. That was wonderful to see, and we can build upon that and heal even more. So I don't know what it's all going to look like, but I know that I am not under any of those laws of time and human destiny, because I am above all those, because I am under no laws but God's. I'm right up there, parallel with all the laws of God, and God's law is life, and God's law is infinite, eternal being. And why don't other Course in Miracles teachers talk about this? Because it's too fucking challenging. It's too challenging. But we talk about it here, and I'm really happy that we do that. We're not too scared. It's not too scary. Let's not be scared. Let us really live in the land of the free and the home of the brave, and really embrace the sacredness of freedom. That's my talk for the day. Thank you very much.
A flower is a beautiful thing. It grows to the quiver of a fife that sings. I can take it with the wave of my hand and place it upon my music stand. Such a beautiful thing. Such a beautiful